Welcome, everybody. We will be starting very shortly. Just let everybody start joining the YouTube live channel, and we will start in the next minute. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, and thank you so much for joining us. Today's webinar is titled Grade 12 Redefined with the American GED. My name is Sean Swartz. I am the CEO of SK Education Solutions. SK Education Solutions is the official office of the GED in South Africa, as well as throughout Africa. We are live on YouTube, and we have made the comments facility available for you to post your questions. So please feel free to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure that our expert panelists answer your questions. A huge special welcome to all our prospective GED students and parents out there. Just so that you know, the GED testing program makes it possible for you to earn the equivalent of a secondary school leaving certificate to facilitate employment, to allow entry to further studies, and it was created way back in 1942 in the US. Why? It was created as a second chance opportunity when soldiers were coming back from the war. However, today the GED is a very, very different thing. It's brand new, it's 21st century, and we have more than 20 million people that have passed and graduated with a GED. We have quite a few special guests with us today. First and foremost is Shirley Irwi. She is a homeschooling expert who has been educating her own 6 children. In 2016, she launched Online GED Prep South Africa to help students to prepare for their GED. Joining Shirley are 2 of her graduates, Anja and Liam. Anja has just completed her undergrad degree at Cornerstone Institute, and Liam has also completed his undergrad degree from the University of the People, and he did that last year. These 2 graduates are proof that you, as a prospective GED student, can get your GED. And then, over and above that, you can go on to study towards a degree. They have both agreed to give of their time and share their experiences with us. I can't tell you how often I get asked whether you can study further and get a degree after graduating with a GED. Shirley and both her GED graduates will also be staying online after they've presented and answered our questions to answer your questions that you may have for them and about the GED in general. So please feel free to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure that we answer your questions. Also, just to make sure that this gets out there to as many GED graduates and prospective students as possible, please, I'm asking you, don't forget to like this video. And if you want to know more about the videos that we offer, you can subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with everything GED. So Shirley, why don't we start off with you? Why don't you start off by briefly introducing yourself?
Hi, Sean. Thanks for the introduction. Well, I've been homeschooling my own family since 1997, and I started with my stepdaughter, but she went to live with her mother and never completed home education. So when my eldest daughter was about 14 or 15, we started investigating pathways to get a certificate at the end of her home education. And that was when I discovered the GED. And it seemed like such a straightforward solution for people in a situation like us who are homeschooling and giving our children an alternative kind of education. And so we looked at the options, and she agreed that the GED would be the best for her, and she did it. And it was, to me, just such an amazing option that nobody in the home education community was really utilizing, that I started telling people about it on social media. And that was how you and I connected, and I launched online GED Prep. And since then, we've also, as our business, we've supported many other students who have chosen this as an alternative to grade 12. So I'm always just excited about it because I just see it as such a wonderful solution for the home education community. But not only homeschoolers, they're also just people who don't do well in the school system for whatever reason. And they often switch to the GED, or they're people who dropped out of high school because of disasters or trauma or whatever. And now they want to have that second chance, as you said. And so, that's why we just love what we do.
I mean, it's an incredible story. And the fact that you've been educating 6 children is, you get a medal for that in itself. But thank you for that introduction. So, Anja, firstly, thank you for joining us. To begin with, would you mind just briefly telling us why you chose the GED, as well as what you are doing now that you are a GED graduate?
I started doing homeschooling when I was in grade 8. Just like with what Shirley said, the system just didn't work for me. And when I finished with homeschooling in grade 12, I wanted to do further study, but my homeschooling did not allow me for further education. And a family friend, had pointed out GED as a possible solution. And upon further investigation, it just seemed like the best choice at the time. And I honestly can say it was one of the best choices I have made for this. And yeah, I completed it. As for what I am doing now, as you've said, I have completed my undergrad degree. And right now I am working on gaining experience so that I may move on to further study as an art therapist.
Wow, that's really, it's encouraging to hear that you've managed to go so far already by having done your homeschooling and then doing the GED and then studying further. Incredible. So another question for you is, like, what did you enjoy most about the GED?
How do I put it? I'd say it was less intimidating than my experiences with public school. That is the best way I can really put it, because the school system has left something of a mark in how I feel about education in general. And GED provided a friendly way of helping me to further study and expand my knowledge and so forth.
Okay. I mean, it's a very fair comment. Thank you. Thanks, Anja. Let's introduce Liam. Liam, thank you also for joining us today. My question to you is, why did you choose the GED in the first place? And as a graduate, as a GED graduate, what are you doing now?
Thank you very much. So my whole path began in Cornwall Hill College, private institution. The schooling there was very good, but it was unfortunately the private institution normal schooling for me, I didn't sit very well. Moved from there to Waldorf School after grade 7. That was almost on the other end. It was less strict. Then from there, I ended up doing IGCSE, Cambridge IGCSEs. which was essentially my first dip into the homeschooling pool, if you could say so. But it was more so homeschooling with none of the perks really. It wasn't a home institution, anything like that. You had to still go to facilities. And then my mother actually introduced me to the GED at around 17 years old, about 17 years. Got the program, sat with it, graduated, went through everything quite well. The system works very, very well in the GED. Graduated, and now I applied in 2019. I applied to University of the People with that GED diploma. And because the University of the People is a Pasadena, California-based American institution, there was absolutely no hiccups with that. And I started studying health sciences in 2019, just before COVID hit. And I am now currently in my final term for my 4-year BSc Health Sciences degree. Begins tomorrow, actually. So
you need to have an early night tonight.
Yes, I'm sweating already.
That's really amazing. Sure, that really is incredible. I think it's exciting, and well done to you. And just by the way, we as the GED on a regular basis recommend students do and contact and investigate and consider doing a degree through the University of the People. University of the People do accept GED graduates. It's an American diploma or degree, a university. They're American credited, as you said, and it's all done online. And from a financial perspective, by the way, it's also affordable to a certain extent. It's not like a normal American university that you have to take out 1 million loans just to be able to pay for it. The University of the People, it works out to the equivalent of going and studying at a public university in South Africa. And so it's relatively affordable. And so it's a great option to do degrees. And as you said, the degrees are 4 years, which is how American degrees work. It's essentially the same as South Africa with the honors. So it's like doing an undergrad degree and honors, and that's what an undergrad degree is in South Africa. So Liam, prior to the education, did you have, what did you have before you started the GED? Like, did you just homeschool? Did you have a grade 9? Like, what was it?
So, like I said, I was in Cornwall Hill College up until about grade 7. I could say I have a private school institution version of a grade 7. Went from there to the Waldorf School. I wasn't quite sure what that format was. Then the Cambridge IGCSEs, I did do Afrikaans business, and then I believe it was English for the first exam period in 2016. So I do have those IGCSE records as well. And then I came across the GED program.
So you essentially finished off at RGCSE level, and then you moved on to the GED. And for anyone that doesn't know, the RGCSE level is the equivalent of a grade 10-ish, grade 10, grade 11.
Grade 10, 11, correct.
Yeah. So that is the perfect time to go to the GED if you wanted to as well. Right. So, by the way, remember to type your questions in the comments facility. We will be monitoring these questions, and we will try our best to ensure we answer all your questions at a little bit later. So, Anja, back to you. Question, did you find the GED difficult?
Like as a whole or as individual modules?
Both.
I would say that as a whole, it did give a unique challenge, as I was learning things that I had never thought of in either public school or in homeschooling, especially in regards to social studies, which was for me the most challenging module for me. But it was also the one that probably provided the most information for me to go further than I thought I would have been able to.
Okay, all right.
And Anja,
did you-
can I jump in? Anja, can I ask? Obviously, the GED makes a lot of use of the critical thinking skills, the argumentative writing. Did you find that that required a big shift or a new skill set, or was the change from your more traditional schooling type of learning to the GED, was it a big change? How did that go for you?
I'd say it was a relatively big change for me, because I've noticed in public school and in homeschooling, they don't usually cover things like the critical thinking when I needed to go over information, especially. And one of the biggest projects I had to deal with in university was a research paper, which required me for a lot of critical thinking and going over arguments and making them, for example.
Yeah, I'd agree there. I think that's something that, especially students that do further studies, as students that have done the GED, they find it a big benefit having already acquired those skills. Where I remember where I'd done mainstream schooling, it was a big change. And I think that's where we find GED graduates do so well later in life, is they've already acquired those critical thinking, argumentative writing skills, which are critical and are vital to later in life.
And not only later in life, just during the undergrad degree. While you're studying that, it makes a huge difference having those skills. So Liam, what about you? How did you find the GED? Did you find it difficult, easy?
In terms of work content, it was very smooth, the transition from, first of all, from IGCSE level, which is British, through to an American. I initially thought it would be a little bit more difficult, as the language side of everything, especially American and then British, is slightly different punctuation and spelling and whatnot. But overall, the GED, the maths, the English, social studies as well, everything about the modules and how they set up is very well done and very thorough. There was no point throughout that process that I ever felt like I didn't know what I was doing. Especially with maths specifically. I am not a maths guy, not a numbers fan at all. The maths was so well explained and so informative, and it involved me in such a way that I understood it better than I think I ever have, starting from the absolute base up to quadratic equations and high school level maths.
Well, I think it's fair to say that it's not necessarily that the GED was easy. It's just that the learning material that you had and the way you studied helped you in such a way that it was also, you found it easier. But yes. I wouldn't say that the GED itself is easy. We spoke about the University of the People. Would you mind just briefly, can you tell us what your experience with them is? Just so that GED graduates and students that are about to graduate and considering university, and what you, the people.
So the experience with the GED, because it's almost completely, if not entirely complete, online experience, moving from that to a completely online university experience with University of the People was absolutely seamless. In fact, I wager to say the GED was slightly better in terms of the way that they presented content, but I suppose that's to be expected, because at university level, you're supposed to be able to think and reason and help yourself a little bit. With that being said, the University of the People courses and everything, it's online, it's done through Moodle. Very clear, very straightforward. You are in touch with your instructors 24/7. And then the course content you get through syllabuses and reading material and whatever, very plain, straightforward. As for work content itself, in terms of the GED, what it prepared me for and what it allowed me to do, because health sciences is a very research-heavy field, I sit for a long period of time each and every day reading through different versions of the same topic in terms of research, and I have to then go and piece it together and tell you what's going on, and tell the lecturers what's going on, and what they want to hear out of it, or what points I found and where it contradicts. And I feel that the GED, especially for research heavy topics, like I know Anja is doing psychology as well, those research heavy topics are directly made easier by the GED from that comprehension side of the languages.
That's really good to hear. In general, would you recommend the university or the people to other GED graduates?
I would definitely do so. It's an absolute no-brainer for me. The GED as a American certification it would allow you smooth, clear, easy access to something like University of the People, provided that you show all of the necessary transcripts and diploma information, whatnot. I'm not quite sure about other American institutions, but the GED itself for the University of the People is, I know from my experience, it's a very good way to start your path down working towards a degree.
Brilliant, brilliant, and well done, well done. And yeah, do you feel that the GED has helped you, just in general? Has it helped you in life since you graduated with studies and everything else?
I would say it is a definitive yes for me, as even though it is not involved, even when it is not involved with my university studies, it has helped me to better interact with my day-to-day life. But as maths, for example, is pretty much everywhere, whether you like it or not. And English is a very important subject in Pretoria, where even if Afrikaans is the most one of the most spoken languages, English is generally much more commonly found in my area. So for the things like the sciences and social studies, it has just helped in general with understanding day-to-day work.
Okay. And Anja, like, what advice would you give to students that are considering the GED?
GED is not something to be underestimated, if I had to put it that way. Well, one of the things I've learned from some other students who have taken GED were under the impression that GED is easy when it was in fact not. And it is something important to consider when you are considering doing GED, is that it is not easy and should not be expected to be.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's great advice. Liam, what doors were you able to open because of the GED?
So obviously getting into University of Health Sciences was a big one. Very, very proud of that fact. Very grateful for the opportunity it provided me. In terms of quality of life stuff as well, from the health sciences side, has also allowed me to understand a lot of the world a lot better. I've become a little bit more inquisitive on, especially through growing up. I mean, you go from being 17, 18, 19, I'm still, for all intents and purposes, a child. It boosted my confidence a bit in terms of, for a long time, without it, I wasn't exactly sure where I'd end up in the world. And obviously getting into a university, thinking, I'm only going to make it to the first year and then it's all going to fall apart. And the second year comes around and you go, okay, cool. And then you get your undergrad and now you keep going and keep going. The opportunity that has afforded is worth its own weight in gold, in my opinion. As well as the fact that the GED, when you go for specific opportunities, when you go for the programs and stuff at University of the People, your completion of the language arts side of the GED allows you to not have to do English competency, provided that you can present those documents for University of the People. So it actually sort of it pushed me a bit forward in my studies, but not to a great extent.
But I also think, Liam, kudos to you, because you've taken the opportunity and you've flown with it. You've put in the hard yards, you've put in the, the study, the time, the effort. So well done to you too. It takes a lot for someone and a lot of maturity to recognize the opportunity to study hard, get your GED, and keep on going. It's not an easy road, but if you dedicate it like you are, I mean, look how wonderfully well you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and the same to Anja. I mean, just getting a degree like is just really incredible. We're proud of both of you.
Yeah.
Liam,
And I love art therapy. I think it's really revolutionizing therapy today.
Absolutely. Liam, last question for you. Do you have any additional advice for students considering the GED?
From my experience with it, timeline, because the online format is very nice. It's unbelievably convenient. It's so stress-free and relaxed. But the problem with that is the lack of stress, or the very relaxed environment that it provides, almost condones procrastination to a certain extent. I'm not saying I procrastinated a lot, but when you first begin with it, you have to be on top of everything from day one, week to week, day to day, hour to hour. Every single thing that you need to do needs to be tracked at a reasonable pace. Otherwise, you will fall behind, because work does really pile up quite a lot. It's quite strange.
Yeah, no, it's true. As you said, the GED is not so simple, and so there is a lot of work to do. And thank you to both of you for contributing, giving some feedback. There are lots of questions which we will get to, but I've got a question for Shirley before we continue, and that is, Shirley, do you have any advice for parents considering the GED for their children?
Sorry, I was just struggling to unmute for a moment. Yes, I think the advice I would give is to regularly log into your student's dashboard with their username and password, and just do what parents must do and supervise your children. Some students are fantastic. They self-motivated, they're diligent, they put in their 2 hours or whatever each day. But you always have the odd one who's still very immature, and they sit at their desk kidding their parents that they're doing their online schooling, but they're obviously not. So I always just advise parents, check in every so often, and the dashboard shows parents the number of hours your student has been studying for that week or a month. It shows you their progress through the learning material for each subject. It shows you their scores on their latest lessons and on their practice tests. And so that will give you a good idea of how they're doing. And if you're not sure, you can always contact us as the service provider, and we can have a look and give you a report on how your student is doing. But to just put kids in front of a screen and expect that they're going to do everything doesn't always work. Some do, some don't. So you as the parent have to also take some responsibility and just monitor your children. I think that's probably the most important thing. And start with essay writing with younger kids early. If you've got other homeschooling kids that are in their early high school years, don't leave essay writing right till the last thing, because it's a skill that takes time to develop. It's not, the GED isn't something that you can just let your kids cram and study the night before an exam. It's skills, and skills have to be practiced and used and improved. So I think those are the two things that are important, because people seem to battle the most with that argumentative essay. Most people have anxiety about maths and their children's maths, but actually with the GED, that gets sorted out. But the essay takes time.
And I think that's what's so wonderful about the online learning resources that you provide to the students is that besides the interactive learning, the customized learning plans, all of that, it's the being able to monitor the progress of your child. So, you know, it's quite easy for a child to say, Mom, Dad, I'm studying so many hours a day, I'm sitting on my computer, but to be able to see how many hours they were actually studying on the system versus sitting on YouTube, TikTok, whatever on their computer, the resources, while they've been evaluated and approved by the GED themselves, it tracks how much actual work they're doing versus how much time they're sitting supposedly doing.
Yeah. Another point is just to say to parents, if your kids are going to do the GED, I always advise that, and if they know what they're planning to do afterwards, research that pathway and make sure you understand the hoops you've got to jump through, because the GED is not the norm in South Africa, where institutions are setting themselves up for kids coming out of the school system. So you just need to understand the different requirements, because it's going to be a foreign credential that your student is applying with, and make sure you know what that process is as well.
Yes, 100%. You can't just suddenly work out your standard point scoring and everything, because while the GED actually covers the content of 8 subjects, the 4 tests does throw all those calculations. So as you said, it's so important, if you are looking at studying further, to check with the institution what the admission requirements are prior to starting the GED.
Yeah, agreed. I agree 100%. And Shirley, thank you so much for all that great advice. Don't forget, put in comments and questions in the comments facility. Also like our video, subscribe to our channel. We're also joined by Lindsay Calder. Now, Lindsay, I didn't introduce her at the beginning, which I should have, seeing that she's spoken so much today. Lindsay has worked in the education industry for more than 17 years with a specific focus on international qualifications, which is what the GED is. And before joining the GED in South Africa more than 7 years ago, she worked for a Cambridge school. She worked for Pearson, and as well as City and Guilds, which are all international qualification awarding bodies. And so she has a huge amount of experience. She's here to answer your questions. Shirley's here to answer your questions, as well as Anja and Liam. So let's do it. Now it's the time to go through all the questions that we received. So let's have a look and start asking the first question. Lindsay, what age must a child be to do the GED? And are they allowed to do it earlier than the age of 18?
So in South Africa, Namibia, and Kenya, the minimum testing age is 17 years old. So a student can write tests when they're 17. They cannot write tests when they are 16, no matter how much you requested, how much you ask. The minimum testing age is 17. If a student is 20, 30, 40, they can also test. Yes.
So they're 17 to test, but obviously they can start studying. Well, you can recommend the age of
16.
At the age of 16, you can start preparing for the GED, and then you can write your exams at the age of 17 or older. Here's a question from Helena. My daughter is 15 now and in grade 10. That's not much of a question, but what would you advise Helena if her daughter is now 15?
Shirley, do you want to answer?
Yes. Well, grade 10 level, if a student has completed grade 10, they usually cope really well with the content on the GED study program to prepare for the tests. But obviously, if she's 15, she's still got to meet the age requirement. So I recommend people to home educate if they're homeschooling, and just continue make sure that they're covering the 4 subjects that the GED tests, which is the math, science, social studies, and English. And we do offer what I call a GED beginners program, which is aimed at students that are age 15 and around, they've completed around grade 9 level in school or home education. And that course just covers maths and English. So you still need something to cover science and social studies. But you can just use this time to also start focusing on these skills like critical thinking, reading stuff together, discussing it, analyzing it, looking at what's said between the lines. Those kind of skills is what is required on the GED. So there's no prescribed curriculum and subjects that you must cover, you know, the liver in science or the pancreas or the lungs, or they don't give specific content. It's skills. And so you can use any learning materials. And then when she is 16, enroll on our online GE prep course, specifically that develops those skills further for the exams.
Right, thank you, absolutely. And just to continue with that, there is a question to tell me more about TABE. I just want to clarify. I mean, Shirley, you mentioned GED beginners. It's called by many names, but you can call it TABE, you can call it pre-GED, you can call it GED for beginners. Essentially, that's exactly what it is. It's for a year before you start the GED, just to prepare yourself for the GED products. Lindsay, a question for you is how...
Sean? Oh, I think Sean's frozen there for a bit. Let me see if I can look up the question he was going to ask. Okay, so I'm assuming Sean was going to ask, how does one apply for a testing accommodation? So on the GED.com website, GED.com / I think it's accommodations, there's all the information available on testing accommodations. You would apply through your GED.com profile. Just something to note is, once you submit your application, because they review each testing accommodation on a case-by-case basis, it can take up to 30 working days, and you need your approval prior to booking your test if you want your accommodation in that test. And also, when you are booking a test with accommodation, the best, you can't go the standard route because they need to arrange that accommodation, so you'd need to book it through the call center.
Okay, and so for more information on that, you can just contact us at the GED and we can direct you. info@ged.org.za or www.ged.org.za.
Yes.
Liam, a question directly for you. What was the biggest difference that you found between the GED and the RGCSE or the Cambridge curriculum?
Biggest difference was when it came to the actual provision of learning material. The GED was a bit more hands-on. IGCSE was very much a distance learning kind of institution. I got all the books and stuff and I sat there, but I wasn't necessarily sure what to do with it a lot of the time. I had to have my mom help me quite a bit. As well as that, the testing environment when I went to go write my exams was also quite, it was a little bit uncomfortable. Very, very strict, very not allowed to leave once you're done. I suppose for security reasons, which is warranted, but I felt nervous the whole time. It was a very, very nervous feeling environment the whole time. The GED was, I was actually, by the time I finished, I was good friends with a few people at the testing facilities that I went to.
Yeah, I think you've explained it so perfectly. Is And also the Cambridge IGCSE, the amount of content that has to be covered can be very overwhelming. Because if you're looking at exemption, you got to do it within your 2 exam sittings. It's not structured in terms of the online learning resources that you would have used for the GED. It very much flows and it guides you from one concept to the next, one subject to the next. With the Cambridge, you've got your textbooks and you got to get on and do it. You got to cover all of it. And obviously the test centers are either British councils or Cambridge schools. And it's the testing environment's very much because it's written a school exam situation, where the GED is you book, you go into a testing center. It's a lot more personal. It's smaller. And as you said, you know the test administrators once you've been a few times. So I would say it caters for a more relaxed and less intimidating workload and testing environment.
Yes, yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. If I could expand as well on what you were saying with the IGCSE's workload as well, a lot of the time the deadlines that were set were, I believe it was a weekly basis for certain activities and whatnot, but there was no real system that could allow you to efficiently both complete and submit that work. And if you fell behind, the penalties were quite swift and efficient on the other end. So a lot of the time, if I fell behind, it would be virtually end of the world in my house. My mom would have to calm me down, sit me down.
Also, yes. And also when it comes to testing, is the GED you can book and write when you're ready and it suits you. Should, for any terrible reason, you have a bad test day and you don't pass, you can book and rewrite when you're ready. You don't have to wait the 6 months as you would have to with Cambridge, where there's only 2 exam sessions a year, and then you need to wait 2 months to get your results. The GED results come within 24 hours as well.
Yes.
Can I jump in there, Lindsay?
Go ahead.
You just reminded me of another tip. I found that most students are actually very confident when they go into the exam because of the preparation that the course we offer gives them. And just for parents, the passing score on the GED is 145 out of 200. On our program, there are practice tests and the students can see how they're doing. And, if they've got 145 out of 200, that's a borderline mark. So I always recommend to students that are studying, make sure you're getting 80% or higher for every lesson before you move on. Take it again if you haven't mastered the work so that you know your stuff. And for parents, check that their final scores are well over the pass mark. I would say over 150, so that if they do mess up on something, there's a little bit of leeway. And then you know that you're not going to have to pay that $80 again for a retake of the test. So, the students need to realize you're going to do this, do it once, do it properly. So do your work diligently and then give it your best shot once you know that you're really ready. Don't just, go in on with a score of 145 and hope that you're going to scrape through. Prepare well.
100%. And we always recommend to students, make sure you do a GED ready practice test, which is the official practice test of the GED. And we always recommend, as you said, we recommend students aim to score at least 155 out of 200 so that they have the confidence going into their final test, because you don't want to go in borderline, fail, and then have to pay $80 again. When you convert $80 to rands, it is quite a bit. But when you do a GED ready practice test, it's a lot cheaper. It gives you whether you're likely to pass. It gives you the areas where you need to focus on to improve. Same as if you were doing a grade 12 at mainstream school, you would do your prelim or your mock exams before your final tests. So do a GED ready practice test before you do the final test to really make sure you are fully ready and prepared.
I think those GED ready tests are very important. You'll find them on ged.org.za if you want to look up more information. A question regarding Afrikaans. if you're Afrikaans speaking, English grammar is often very challenging. And the question from Corinne is there hope for us? And will we be able to do the GED? Anja.
I would say there is definitely hope, because thinking back, in public school, I was Afrikaans speaking, and the homeschooling program that I did required me to speak English. It was a bit of a challenge, the transition, but it's not impossible for Afrikaans speakers to do GED.
So there's hope.
There is always hope.
There's hope. Okay. Lindsay, I'm going to direct this one to you because it's actually quite a concerning comment and question. And I think we just need to always, as we always do, just make it very clear what you can and can't do once you have finished your GED. And the comment is, and the question is, my son has started doing his GED. He wants to do mechanical engineering once he's done. Any suggestions for an institution that will accept the GED graduate?
Okay, so if it was my child, I would look into the AIE group. We know they offer engineering qualifications. They possibly started a diploma or a higher certificate, and they do accept GED graduates. So I would start there. He would struggle to get into the likes of your Wits, your Stellenbosch, your UNISA. So rather go the private higher institution route, looking at AIE. We've had quite a few students go through them, and they seem to have had a good experience. And so consider that route. I don't think University of the People do mechanical engineering, but yeah, look at AIE. That's a good option. If you do have any issues, just pop us a mail and we'll see how we can help.
Yeah, info@ged.org.za and we'll help you. I don't know who can answer this. Lindsay, it may be you, Shirley. I don't know who. Are the grades, I'm assuming that's talking about the exam results that I've achieved in the GED, how are they recognized in the UK?
So I would say, like you do in South Africa, you would apply to SAQA for a certificate of evaluation. In the UK, I'm assuming you would apply to the UK NARIC for a certificate of evaluation. Most countries can do certificates of evaluations for international qualifications that are on frameworks. So they should be able to give you an equivalency. I would assume in the UK, they would probably give an equivalency of an IGCSE or an AS level. They wouldn't give a full A level. But yeah, I'd look into getting that certificate of evaluation.
Just to add, universities around the world generally accept whatever is accepted in the home country of a foreign qualification. And in the US, the GED plus a good SAT score is usually accepted for university admission. So I would imagine that if you go onto UK university websites and look at international admissions or foreign admissions, it might state that they accept GED and SAT. And so if that's the pathway you're wanting to follow, then you could take the SAT test when your student has finished their GED, if that will open the pathway to study further in the UK. And many other countries also accept that combination. We do have students with a GED and SAT studying at overseas universities already.
And I think, Shirley, on your website, you give some direction and information on the SATs.
Yes, I do have some information there. Two of my own children have taken the SAT test, so it's just, the information based on our experience. I'm not involved with it at all. And I also have a page on the website listing institutions in South Africa where many of our GED graduates have studied or can study quite seamlessly with a GED qualification, just to also help parents who are wanting to find out what are the options, where can we get in.
Well, that was actually a question that I was just going to ask you. because it's come up about 2-3 times. So
Yeah.
regarding where can you study with a GED, just email us on info@ged.org.za and we'll direct you to all the different websites to get that information, Shirley, etc.
When you do email, it would be helpful if you give us an indication of which route you would like to study. It's a little bit harder to advise students when they say, I want to study further, where can I study? If you could just include I would like to study in X field, that would be quite helpful. So we could answer with more relevant information.
Yeah. We're going to end it there for tonight. I'd like to thank Shirley and our guests, Liam and Anja and Lindsay as well for joining us this evening. We are ending a few minutes early, but just it seems as though load shedding has done its thing and everything is slowing down and not doing so well. So we're just going to cut it there. And just thank you all very, very much, parents, prospective parents and students, for joining us. And we will be emailing a recording of this webinar out to everybody. So if you missed anything, it will be available there. And have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending.